Someone asked me recently, why do you think people are receiving the message of grace and becoming apathetic in the church? Which, by the way, church, is a huge issue. Every pastor I talk to has stories of what has happened to some people in the midst of the church. Some of them, even the entire body, the entire church, go, hey, they know they're free, they know they're righteous, they got their inheritance, they don't want to do anything. Now, some of that is a need for healing, because some people came out of religious ceremonies and religious structures that nearly choked them to death, and they just need to come set and get washed off. They don't need to come and have 27 things asked of them every Sunday, because they were already ready to quit anyway. This is their last stop. So in some ways, just keep splashing water on people. Wash their feet off. Just give them hope. Give them help. But what we also need to understand is this, and this is what I think has happened. A lot of people have had grace theoretically. They had a revelation of grace. They read so-and-so's book. They watched so-and-so on TV. They've been talking to their buddies in a Facebook group. They've got verses, they've got testimonies, and they've got concepts. They have a revelation, but they haven't ever received for themselves, unequivocally, no strings attached, no going back. And it hasn't led to relationship. So you show me an individual who's had a revelation without a relationship, and I'll show you someone who hasn't made it to responsibility. Because I have a fourth R on my correct road. Revelation, receive, relationship, responsibility. Why? Because when you are in relationship with someone, you realize you're responsible for them. Right? Right. The moment... My wife and I are in relationship, so I am responsible for her, and she is responsible for me. We owe that to one another. That's a covenant contractual obligation. I owe to her, she owes me. We have 2 kids. I am in a relationship with my son, and I'm in a relationship with my daughter. Therefore, I am responsible for my son, and I'm responsible for my daughter. I am not in a relationship with your son. Therefore, I am not responsible for the upkeep of your son. I'm not supposed to feed him, clothe him, and put him through college. I am supposed to do that with mine because I'm in a relationship with him. The moment I embrace relationship, I embrace responsibility. You show me Christians that do not think they have a responsibility to their neighbor, and I will show you Christians that have a religion that excludes relationship. They have yet to have a true revelation that they are sons and daughters of God. And what we need now in the church, on top of this wonderful revelation of grace, is a people who receive that goodness and let it cultivate relationship to where they know they're the sons and daughters of God. And they can get off the treadmill because they don't owe Dad. Yeah, right. They don't owe Dad. When my son comes home from college, he goes to the pantry. Good Lord. He opens that door and it is a tornado attack against all things not moving. And never one time has my son turned around and said, hey, Dad, how much do I owe you? It'd be nice once in a while, Barry, but no. No, it wouldn't. I don't want him to. He doesn't have that. Why? Because he knows what belongs to Daddy belongs to me. Amen. He walks in, he opens the pantry, he goes, if Dad put it in there, if Mom and Dad put it in there, they'd put it in there for me to eat it. Amen. They didn't put it in there for me to save money and pay for it and ask for it later. That's mine and that's mine now. And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way, because what it shows me is I got a kid who's comfortable enough to walk in there and take what he wants. And you see that in your children. You know that. Why? Not some strange boy's going to walk into my house and just go right over to the pantry and start eating, because we're going to have a conversation. Well, hey, dude, who are you? You don't belong in my house, and you certainly don't belong in my pantry. Get out of here. And no one would do that. If you walked in and you wanted something to eat, you'd probably make an offer. Like, hey, I gave you $5. Give me this. Because there's a distance that is only covered in relationship. Amen. Thank God it's what we have with Jesus. Yes, sir. We are not approaching God from afar. We are in relationship. And when we realize that, we relax. And you know what happens when you get off the treadmill of the wrong cycle and you get on the performance? Because you don't keep going around and around and around and around and around. It doesn't mean you don't keep receiving revelation. It just means you don't go in a downward spiral and need it and then an up. That's the roller coaster. What it means is, as you start to rest in that, the revelations of your dad get bigger.
Yes, that's true.
You're not starting over every day. The revelations of your father get broader. They get more colorful. They get more beautiful. You start to see things you didn't see before because you realize it's not all about you. It's about a relationship you get to have with your father. And your father starts to reveal his heart. And you know what happens in this? The box doesn't get smaller. The box gets bigger. Bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Why? Because you start to feel the heart of your dad. And when you start to feel the heart of your dad, you go, I don't think he's excluding all the people I don't want. I think he's starting to he's starting to give me a heart that wants them. I think that's how dad feels about them. I think the father has everybody else in mind too. And the moment that box starts getting bigger, your responsibility starts going up to meet the box. Because your responsibility goes, oh my goodness, if dad cares for them as much as I'm thinking dad cares for them, I think I'm supposed to care for them. I think I'm supposed to respond differently to them. I don't think they're off limits anymore. I don't think this whole thing's about who's right and who's wrong. Once you get out of religion, you get done with who's right and who's wrong, and you start to get into, do these people know their dad's kids? Now, some people always push back right there and go, you can't say that, Pastor, because some of these people don't know Jesus. You can't act like they're God's kids. Well, then get mad at Paul. Not this Paul, that Paul. Because Paul goes to Athens and he sees a statue to the unknown God. Now, these are a bunch of heathen Greek philosophers that do not know even the man Jesus, much less the theology of Jesus. And Paul goes, hey, I see you guys got a statue here to the unknown God. Let me tell you about him. Listen what he says. In him we live and we move and we have our being, and we are all his offspring.
Hallelujah.
That's a toughie if you got a little box. He goes, we're all his offspring. And he's not that far away from all of us.
Amen.